In the summer of 2020, marine specialists found themselves off the coast of Scotland's Orkney Islands, pulling up treasures from the depths of the ocean. After hours of working, they brought their coveted haul to the surface above the water. It was covered in algae, barnacles, and living, breathing sea anemones. What were they raising from the ocean though? A sunken ship worth millions? Piles and piles of pirate gold? No. In fact, the teams at the Orkney Islands were working on behalf of Microsoft, and they'd just located data centers that had been sitting 117 feet underwater for over 2 years. You might be asking yourself why Microsoft has submerged such important technical devices underwater. Isn't that the boneheaded and surefire way to destroy them? Well, the answer is actually no, because Microsoft knew exactly what they were doing, and this was all part of their plan to create more reliable, practical, and functional data centers for their customers. That's right, the future of data storage might be underwater. So, how exactly does this all work? And most importantly, is this really where most companies' data storage is headed? Well, back in 2018, Microsoft started its Project Natick. It all centered around a massive tube that was filled to the brim with nitrogen and submerged more than 100 feet underwater off the coast of the Orkney Islands. What was inside this thick, impenetrable tube? Racks and racks of complicated, cutting-edge computer servers that would remain in the tube underwater while carefully monitored by Microsoft staff on land. Once the tube was resting comfortably under the waves, everything was turned on and began running, and the great experiment began. Why underwater? How did Microsoft come up with the idea of putting their servers in the same place that starfish and sharks call home? Does this make any sort of sense? Or is it a recipe for disaster? It actually makes perfect sense when you think about the biggest problems that data centers encounter. When they thought up of Project Natick, Microsoft was looking for more ways to create a reliable and safe data center that was free of humidity, corrosive oxygen, and human interaction. Many of the issues that compromise servers are because of too much air, too much humidity, and too many humans coming in and out. Any one of those can cause certain doom for servers. Think about it, when a human enters a data center, they're just one bump or slip away from knocking things over and destroying gigabytes upon gigabytes of precious data. How can any of that be avoided though? Well, how can all of that be avoided? How can Microsoft avoid careless mistakes by employees as well as an overabundance of oxygen and pesky humidity? Well, they could send data centers into space, or they could send them to the bottom of the ocean. It all made sense on paper, but Microsoft knew their plans might be ridiculed or questioned by others. The very premise of submerged servers in the ocean just seems dangerous. From a young age, everyone is taught that anything electronic should stay far, far away from the water. Aren't there risks involved in an operation like this? Just one false move and the entire data center would immediately be ruined. That's millions of dollars wasted and so much data lost forever. Indeed, Microsoft would have to go to great lengths to make sure that precious cargo was kept safe. That's why they called upon Naval Group, which is a 400-year-old French company that has a lot of experience engineering and manufacturing military-grade ships and submarines all over the world. If anyone could create the vessel Microsoft needed, it would be them. Microsoft gave Naval Group all the detailed specifications they required. After some careful considerations, Naval Group determined that there wasn't much of a difference between Microsoft's aquatic data center and the submarines they had crafted before. It actually makes perfect sense when you compare the two. Both submarines and the proposed underwater data center are similar in their anatomy. They're both big pressure vessels that store highly complex and delicate instruments and infrastructure. Once Naval Group was able to get a handle on the task at hand, they got hard at work producing this state-of-the-art vessel, one that could keep the server safe from the elements outside and the deep cold of the ocean floor. The company adapted a heat exchange process that is usually used for cooling submarines. How does it work? It directly pipes seawater through the radiators on the back of the 12 server racks inside the tube. Then, the water is once again sent back into the ocean. Make no mistake, the servers run the risk of getting wet, but they also benefit from the cool temperature of the ocean water. After months of testing and tinkering, Naval Group revealed a tube for the servers that would get the job done, stay safe, and remain comfortable underwater for years. Then the data center inside the tube was fully assembled and everything was bolted shut, and systems checked again and again to make sure all was in working order. Naval Group and Microsoft loaded these fully encased data centers on the back of an 18-wheel truck. and drove them out to the Orkney Islands. They were then towed out to sea for deployment. Then, they set the data center on the water and began the process of submerging it. The final creation was 40 feet long, with 12 racks containing 864 servers and cooling systems. Everyone held their breath as Naval Group's creation began to descend under the water. The chop was calm, the waves were reasonable, and the tube lowered and lowered with very few problems. When the data center found its home more than 100 feet down, a remotely operated vehicle retrieved a cable with the fiber optic and power wiring from the seafloor and brought it up to the surface. That cable was connected to the power source and boom, the data center was turned on and started functioning right away. It was then and only then that Microsoft and Naval Group were able to breathe a sigh of relief. For 2 long years, the data center stayed in place and worked 24/7 as Microsoft monitored the results. In the end, it was discovered that the underwater servers failed at a rate that was 1/8 compared with land-based servers. That's very promising data, and it could pave the way for the future of data centers. Not only did the underwater tube keep all the servers safe and secure, it also did so with renewable energy. One of the major goals with Project Natick was to find a way to serve customers in environmentally friendly ways. The data center located off of Scotland did just that. That's because windmills are a major part of the landscape of Orkney Island. In fact, 100% of the electricity supplied to the residents of Orkney Islands is generated from renewable energy technologies like windmills. Microsoft simply used a cable from the Orkney Islands power grid to fire up their underwater data center. That means that this revolutionary aquatic data center was fully powered by renewable energy. Therefore, Microsoft was able to achieve both of its goals: create a safe, stable, and green home for these precious servers. It worked at Orkney Islands, and it can work at any number of places as well. Did you know that more than half of the world's population lives within about 120 miles of a coastline? That means that these new types of data centers may soon be adorning the sea all over the world. Now that the tech giant has proven such a plan like this, outrageous as it might seem at first, is actually possible, they are going to keep trying to find more and more ways to think outside the box in order to help their clients and help the globe at the same time. In fact, the entire premise for this underwater data center was created when Microsoft called for radical, inventive ways to transform the industry. The underwater data center started as just an idea, but it soon became a reality that could not only change the way Microsoft works, but the way that all tech companies store data and preserve the environment. Data centers are truly the backbone of the internet. They are an essential way to keep cloud computing safe and store precious data. Simply put, the web cannot exist without them. Demand for these very important components of the internet will only grow and grow in the years ahead, and companies are looking for new ways to make them work better, faster, and safer. It seems that Microsoft has done all of that with their underwater data center, created as part of Project Natick. Now that Microsoft has found success in their experiment off the coast of Scotland, they're looking ahead and thinking of ways to deploy this technology all over the world. Underwater data centers make perfect sense and are practical, safe, and good for the environment. That means that if you are living near a beautiful seashore, you may soon witness Microsoft sailing up to shore.